Okay, guys, we are starting a new chapter in reading, the last chapter we're going to do this year. So make sure you have out your reading textbook, your vocabulary notebook, and your Monday packet, because if you flip past the math test, you do have some guided practice. So what I want you to do is right now, this theme map, tear it out, because I do not want it back. Do not send this back to me. You should be tearing this out because this is guided practice. I do not want it back. I will not be grading it. Okay, so go ahead and open up your reading textbook to page 688. Page 688. This chapter is called Wild Visitors, which means we're probably going to be talking about wild animals or animals in general. Let's look at the talk about it. Why is this photograph of a peregrine falcon living in a big city surprising? So just think about that. We're not going to answer it out loud, but why is it surprising to see a photograph of a peregrine falcon in a big city like New York? Okay, once you're done thinking about that, go ahead and turn the page and let's look at the country mouse and the city mouse. Okay guys, so before we start the story, we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing the last two chapters, where I am going to write the list of vocabulary words on the board. You will pause the video, and then you will define the words using the glossary in the back of the book. Make sure that you are doing this. I will be able to tell on your quiz and your assignments if you are not. So make sure that you're doing this. Okay, so the first word is the word wistfully. So you should be on a clean page in your reading notebook, in your reading vocabulary. The title of this chapter is Wild Visitors. And number one is the word wistfully. W-I-S-T-F-U-L-L-Y. Remember, when you write the definitions, you write the word, of course. You write the part of speech, and then you write the definition. You do not have to write the syllables, the pronunciation key, or the word in context. But please do read the word in context so you know you have an idea of how you would use that in a sentence. Number two is the word eavesdropping. Eavesdropping, which is spelled E-A-V-E-S-D-R-O-P-P-I-N-G. Eavesdropping. Number three is the word scuffling. Scuffling. S-C-U-F-F-L-I-N-G. Scuffling. Number four is the word acquaintance. Acquaintance. And that is spelled A-C-Q-U-A-I-N-T-A-N-C-E. Acquaintance. Make sure that you are spelling these words correctly, so you need to be watching and looking at the word before you write it. Number five is the word jumble. Jumble. J-U-M-B-L-E. Number six is the word scornfully. Scornfully. That is spelled S-C-O-R-N-F-U-L-L-Y. And the last word, number seven, is the word logical. Logical. L-O-G-I-C-A-L. So go ahead now, pause this video, look up all these words in your glossary. Make sure that you write the word, the part of speech, and the definition. You do not have to write the syllables, the pronunciation key, or the word in context, but do read the word in context. If a word has more than one definition, you do need to write both of them or all of them if there's more than that. Okay, so go ahead and do that right now, and then play this video when you're finished. Okay, so now that you are done finding all the definitions, let's go ahead and read. And before we read, I'm going to let you know, instead of filling out our theme map as we read, we're going to read it, and then we're going to go back and look, and then we'll fill it out. That's important when you are working with theme, is to read it and then go back and look. Now, we probably will fill it out as we go tomorrow for the long story, but when we have short stories like this, it's important to read the whole thing before you start filling it out. So let's go ahead, let's read that box at the bottom of page 691 so that we know what we're going to be looking for after we read. And it says, analyze story structure. Theme. So theme is what we're going to be working on this week. In a fable, the theme may be expressed as the moral. So if you've heard the moral of the story, that is the same thing as the theme. To identify the theme, think about the story structure. Think about what the characters do and say and what happens as a result. Finally, ask yourself, what lesson or moral does the author want the readers to learn? So what we're going to be doing is, as we read a story, we're going to be coming up with clues that lead us to what the theme is, or what the author wants us to learn from reading the story. So let's look at page 690, and let's go ahead and read. Read in your book, in your head, while I read out loud. The Country Mouse and the City Mouse, retold by Geoff Banner. So we see that word retold again. That means that Geoff Banner did not originally come up with this story. He just heard it and decided to write it down. This story, it's not a myth like what we did last week. This story is a fable, which is a little different. It's fables are stories that are told. They are fiction stories, so they are not real. They usually have animals in them, and they are fiction stories told to teach a lesson. So a myth was a fiction story, usually with humans, that explained why something happened, like we learned about the myth about why earthquakes and tsunamis happened. But fables are stories written, they are fiction, they usually involve animals, and they are told to teach a lesson. So that works perfectly with theme, because the lesson that this fable is trying to teach us will be the theme of the story. One day, Country Mouse invited an old friend from the city to visit her. Country Mouse welcomed City Mouse with a delicious meal of fresh barley and corn. City Mouse was very quiet, so Country Mouse asked her whether anything was wrong. I was just missing the city, she replied wistfully. You must come visit one day. There are lots of good things to eat. Country Mouse thought this was a very good idea, so a few weeks later she traveled to the city. City Mouse invited her friend for dinner at her favorite restaurant. Country Mouse followed City Mouse as she tiptoed quietly into a cupboard and listened. So what are we doing? Asked Country Mouse. Shh, we're doing a bit of eavesdropping, City Mouse whispered. When the cook leaves for the night, we can help ourselves to that lovely bag of sugar over there. A light went out and it grew quiet. City Mouse nibbled a hole in the bag, and Country Mouse took the tiniest taste. I've never tasted anything so wonderful in all my life, she cried. Just then, the mice heard a scuffling sound coming from behind the cupboard door. Run for your life! Screamed City Mouse. That's Esperanza, the cook's rotten cat, City Mouse explained when they were safe. You don't ever want to make her acquaintance. One swipe from her claws, and it's curtains. When she's asleep again, we can go back for more sugar. But Country Mouse was too frightened to go back, so they went down to the basement instead. There they found a jumble of grain bags stacked randomly against the wall. Country Mouse happily nibbled this and that. Then she saw something that made her mouth water. A hunk of cheese. Country Mouse was about to bite it when... Stop! Yelled City Mouse. Can't you see that's a trap? She said scornfully. One nibble and that big metal thing comes crashing down. Country Mouse was horrified. The city was not the safest, most logical place for a mouse to live or visit. So Country Mouse went home and never visited the city again. Okay, so now go ahead get out your theme map and let's go ahead and fill it out. We're going to think about what happened in the story, and then we'll fill out our theme map with clues. Now we won't fill every one of these boxes. I think we'll fill all but one of these boxes because this was actually written for the story we're going to read tomorrow, which is longer, but we will be using most of these boxes. So let's think about the story. At the very beginning, City Mouse went to visit Country Mouse, and she got very homesick. So that's our first clue. That's the first major thing that we read. That's the first thing we discover. So City Mouse is homesick while visiting the country. Try to make your handwriting small enough that you can fit, but in order for you to read it, I cannot do that. So, now what happens next? She says she misses all the good things that there are to eat and all that kind of thing. And so, then that makes Country Mouse think, okay, that sounds like a good place to go. So the next thing that happens is that Country Mouse agrees to visit the city. She's actually really excited about that. She's heard what City Mouse has said about the food there, so now Country Mouse is very excited. She thinks it's a great idea. Excuse me, my nose is very itchy. So then I wonder if that means, if I were just reading this for the first time, I would wonder, is Country Mouse going to get homesick in the city, just like City Mouse got homesick in the country? I don't know. Let's keep reading. So then they get to the city and they go to the restaurant, and Country Mouse is still very excited about all this. And then they get to eat the sugar, and Country Mouse is like, ooh, this is the best thing I've ever tasted. But then the cat, Esperanza, chases the mice. So that's the next important thing that happens in this story. Oops, I almost wrote story instead of mice. Now I'm not so sure, but it sounds like Country Mouse is starting to change her mind because she says something about being too afraid to go back for the sugar. City Mouse is like, oh, as soon as the cat's gone, we can go back and get new sugar. But Country Mouse is too scared. She just says, nope, I'm not going back. So then they go down to the cellar and they start eating the grain, and it's really good. And Country Mouse is maybe thinking, okay, this isn't so bad again. And then she sees the cheese, and she gets really excited about that cheese, and she goes to try to eat it, and City Mouse stops her and says, no, it's a trap. So that's the next clue, is that Country Mouse almost gets caught in the trap. And after being chased by a cat and almost getting caught in a trap, Country Mouse decides the city is not safe, it is not logical to live here, I don't want to be here anymore. So you know what, we are going to go ahead and add another clue. I didn't think we were going to use this, but we are. So now, Country Mouse is homesick while visiting the city. So, yes, they are both homesick while visiting each other. They're friends, but when the City Mouse goes to the country, she says, this is not the life for me. And when the Country Mouse comes to the city, she says, this is not the life for me. So, based on all of these clues, because City Mouse doesn't seem too bothered by the mice, and she knows the trap, so she knows not to go towards it. So, the lesson we learn, or the theme of this story, is that knowing where you belong is important. Country Mouse knows she belongs in the country. She knows she belongs in the safety of the country. She likes the wide open spaces, I'm sure. She knows how to get food safely and how to live her life in the country. Whereas City Mouse probably thinks it's boring. There's not enough going on. And in the city, she knows how to avoid the cats. She knows how to avoid the traps. She knows how to get food. She gets really good food. And so she knows how to get food and stay safe in the city. So the moral of this story, or the theme, is that knowing where you belong is important. Okay, so now we are done with the story for today. So go ahead and get out your Monday packet and turn to the very last page. It ripped off when I did the other one. And your homework is, you have vocabulary on the front. So what you're going to be doing is, this is a little different than what we've done before. There is a question. It says, like number 1 says, did the raccoon leave a big mess when it turned over the garbage can? You have to answer the question using a vocabulary word that means the same as the underlined word or phrase. So you're not rewriting the question using the vocabulary word. You're figuring out, okay, big mess is the same as this vocabulary word. So you have to answer the question like, yes, the raccoon did leave a blank when it turned over the garbage can. So what you're doing is you are turning these questions into answers using the vocabulary word. So you have to figure out what the underlined word, what the underlined phrase means, which word it's talking about, then write an answer to that question. So you're basically just taking the question, turning it into an answer, but using a vocabulary word instead of the part that's underlined. Then, on the back, make sure you read the box at the top. It's going to remind you what a theme is. Read the directions, then read the passage, and then answer the questions based on the theme. So first, you're going to figure out what is the theme or one of the themes of the stories, and then you're going to give the clues that told you that that was the theme. So you're basically doing what we did up here, just backwards, where you're telling the theme first, then you're coming up with the clues. If it helps you to come up with the clues first, then just do number 2 first. But make sure you have 3 clues and the final lesson that this little passage teaches you. Okay, so that's it for reading today. Go ahead, you can get started on the homework, or you can wait until later this afternoon. However, you have a test to take and some studying to do between 1 and 5, so you might as well just get the homework done right now. Okay, if you have any questions about today's lesson, then go ahead and reach out to me today between 1 and 5. Do not forget the definitions. If you didn't do them earlier, okay, but make sure you do them right now.